Welcome to Intenze, your one-stop shop for all things tattoo and tattoo ink related. In this video, you'll learn the ins and outs of tattoo shading firsthand from world-renowned tattoo grandmaster, Barth. He'll break it down into the following chapters: machine basics and needles, basic techniques, ink to use, advanced techniques, and further studies. As always, let us know what questions you have in the comments below. We personally answer each one. And now, here's Barth.
Okay. You guys have some questions, I have some answers, here we go.
What I really would like to talk to you about a little bit is about the machines. We did not use these machines of any brand, any style. It really has no, it's just for a reference for you that it's gonna help us a little bit. And I really want to talk about the coils right now. And the coils is this part here. So the two coils, the magnetic coils, which actually are responsible for the power of the armature bar here. There's a magnetic field which is getting created and which like pulls this close, because this screw is going to get some electricity through it, and there's going to be a short made between the spring and the screw, and then it's getting pushed downwards. And then when it comes downwards, then the electric field lets off again and it jumps back up again, and it's going back and forth, faster and slower. And we're going to talk about this a little bit, what has an effect on that. The biggest part, what happens first, is basically the effect on the coils. There's different style of coils. There's an 8-rep coil, 10-rep coil, and 12-rep coils. There's also some 14s, but what it really means is there's a stem in the center of the coil, which is right in the middle here. You see it on the top, this contact point, right? This little part here. And if you see that, and then there's a wrapping around from the actually coil wire itself. And if you wrap it one time around the stem, then it would be a 1-wrap coil. If you do it twice, and if you do it 3 times and 4 times in multiple layers, it goes up to 8-wrap coils. That's the resistancy what the electricity needs to create that magnetic field. So the more wraps you have, the more power needs to run through, the harder the machine is going to hit. That's the philosophy behind it. Do I agree with it? Technically, yes. Practically, I believe no. What happens is like in the old days, it was like the 8-wrap was used for lining, and the 12-wrap was used for coloring, because the belief system was the harder the machine hits, the more the color stays in the skin. I believe today the tattoo artists are so educated in skin and so advanced, regardless if they're just starting tattooing, that we can do the same part with an 8-wrap as we could do with a 12-wrap. What's the difference is the setup. It's the setup of the springs and this part here, like the little contact screw. And what happens is there's a back spring, and then there's a front spring. And I'm gonna go to another picture in a second, but I want to show you something here. Those two springs, the back one are in different thicknesses available, and also the front spring are in different thicknesses available. Those springs gonna play a crucial role how your machine works. It's like a guitar string. You have a lower E string and a higher E string. They both make the tone E, but they're different thicknesses, so they have different sounds. So when you change those springs around to make them thicker in the back, it's gonna get a different sound. It's gonna need more electricity to push the armature bar down. So that means the machine is gonna hit most likely harder. The thinner this back spring is, the easier it's going to be that those armature bar goes up and down. So the less electricity you need, the less power you need, the less damage you do to the skin. And that's a basic general rule. And the same is in the front spring. So what basically happens is you need to play with this a little bit, change him around, work on it, and then go from there. There's different type of springs, very long springs like this one, and then there's another one out there which looks like this, and it's a little shorter one. And then there's another one out there, let's say, let me do this really quick. It's like a regular one, also for the front, that has a little silver contact point in there. It looks like this approximately. looks like I can't draw too good. What this is called a cutback shade. So basically this is more like what you see here. It's set up usually for a liner. It makes the armature bar go up and down faster than if this contact screw would be out here, say like this, and then the spring would go out to here, which makes it a bigger whip effect. It's a longer way, you know, than this movement. It's slower, it's little. So this is gonna be way faster than this, and this is considered the whip. So this is basically how long it is, how it feels. Interesting, people in the old days which were using single needles for shading, people like, I mean, there's a lot of people out there like Jack Rudy or Brian Everett, Kev Somsky, Bob Terrell, people like that were using a cutback setup like this with a 1 o'clock position. From the what I'm saying with this is like it shows it's 1 o'clock. If this is a big clock, if you understand this approximate, this would be noon, then this would be showing 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The position of this contact screw hitting that contact spring makes it a cutback liner. So if you do this, it runs faster, and they were using this to shade as well because they were under the impression, and they still are, and I think it's very thoughtful, that the faster the machine runs, the more little dots you get close together, so you get a really smooth shade. So if you want to try those soft black and gray pieces, you should maybe try one machine with a cutback liner. Usually it's set up that the coloring is done in the 2 o'clock position, 2 p.m. in the afternoon, or 14 o'clock in Europe, and long whip shading is done in 3 o'clock. So that contact screw would change angles. This would be lining, cutback shading. This would be a color machine, and 3 o'clock would be a long shading machine. So you get a long, soft stroke. That's what this is called. Sometimes you need to be a little bit careful. If that movement gets too big, then the needle, instead of going like this, is going to start like this. So you need to be very careful. This can create a huge problem in your tube. The needle is going to hit the tube in the front. It's going to be like this. If this would be a tube, it would start hitting the top instead of laying right on the bottom where all the color is. So I hope this makes a little sense. This would be a long front spring, and the one with the little silver screw is usually used because people use stainless steel screws or nickel plated. Let me back up. The people use nickel plated springs and silver screws. The only reason why they use the little silver contact point is that it's going to be silver on silver. It's just a cleaner contact, and that's why it's used in this way.